Britain. Rishi Sunak, as we've been reporting all morning, will visit Poland later today to meet with their PM and also NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg. The aim is to expand Poland's security policy after Tusk announced that Poland will join the European Sky Shield Initiative. I still don't know what that is.
We'll find out, possibly. Well, in the wake of this new support for Ukraine, Poland is said to be optimistic that Europe is listening to them amid rising threats from Russia.
Here's a man that'll explain everything, former NATO Commander Chris Parry. Chris, good morning. Let's get to it. Can we just very quickly, what's that European alert? What was that thing called?
Sky Shield Initiative. I believe it's like, is it similar to the Iron Dome across Israel?
No, it's nothing like the Iron Dome because it doesn't exist. No, it's not. Seriously, it's a notional way in which we can protect the European part of NATO from high-performance aircraft and also hypersonic and ballistic missiles, because that's where the threat has come from. We've seen them used in Ukraine. We've seen them used by Iran. And it's seen to be the coming threat. But it's pretty notional at the moment. What it consists of is trying to integrate all the sensors and all the weapons that we haven't yet got into some sort of system that looks like Iron Dome across the continent. But I should stress that Iron Dome is just one component of what Israel uses. There's all sorts of different components called David Sling. There's a high-altitude arrow system that takes out ballistic missile systems. It's very expensive. It's purely notional at the moment, but we've got to do something.
In my defence, Chris Parry.
In your defence?
In my defence, yeah, I would say that. The Polish Prime Minister did compare it to the Iron Dome. That's why I read it this morning.
Listen, can I just ask? So Sunak, Chris, is going to Poland today. We've talked incessantly on this show about how the Ukraine war and the effort in supporting Ukraine, because it's our war. We've talked about the evil axis of Iran and China and Russia, and if Vladimir Putin's successful, blah, blah. Earlier this week, of course, America finally agreeing that package of £60.9 billion worth of aid. Ukraine in trouble in terms of weaponry and logistics. That's going to be massive. Today, Sunak goes and he says, look, you've got 500 million from the United Kingdom. I want to put something to you I put to our guest last hour, my friend. One of Donald Trump's biggest arguments, and I'm not supporting everything about Donald Trump, is that America does its stuff and the rest of Europe needs to get its finger out because this is a European war. Would you agree with that sentiment? Because certainly when you hear that they've given nearly 61 billion quid, Europe should step up, shouldn't it, despite our difficulties?
Yeah, quite right, Jeremy. I mean, what people are coming to realise, I think, in the United States and across Europe is that Ukraine is just a manifestation of what is going on around this axis of autocracy in Eurasia. So Iran is sort of leaning on Israel and the greater Middle East. Russia's leaning on Ukraine. China will shortly be leaning on the South China Sea and Taiwan, and North Korea on South Korea. So instead of seeing it as just a European problem now, the United States across the board is beginning to see this as a manifestation of these crises that are occurring in the gap between China, Russia, Iran and North Korea, and what I call the maritime democracies, what you and I would call the free world. And they are all symptoms of this broader crisis, which have to be dealt with. So if the Americans want our help in dealing with China and North Korea, they're going to have to help us in Europe.
And Chris, I put this to our previous guest who was talking about this topic. Do you think that there is a diplomatic solution to the conflict between Putin and Ukraine?
No, I don't. I'm afraid to say that the Putin regime, and you've heard me say before, I think that Putin's a front man now, has actually set its future survival on success in Ukraine. I think at the moment they feel they can succeed. I've always believed, and I've said to you in the past, that Russia wants the bottom third of Ukraine as part of Russia. So they won't give up until they've captured Odessa and probably Moldova as well. The Russians aren't interested. The Ukrainians cannot be interested in the diplomatic solution because their future survival depends on it.
And that would mean giving land away. Can we talk about... I just think it's very important. I asked somebody last hour, Sir Gerald Howarth, how he'd sell this. Chris, do me a favour for people tuning in this morning who might listen to what we're saying about Ukraine being Europe's war, might well understand the ramifications of that, but are struggling with raised mortgages, with problems in society. We know about that. How do you sell the fact that we have to give this money. When people wake up this morning, I get it, you get it, 500 million, there's a lot of people in this country going, hold on a minute, I can't see a dentist, I can't do this, I can't do that. For people listening and watching, how do you sell that, Chris Parry? It's important, this.
OK, so if you go to Ukraine and you ask them what their top priority is right now, it's defence. If you don't get your defence and security right, you don't get to make any decisions about going to the dentist or what you do in everyday life. We're in the late 1930s in a way, and if we want fascist and totalitarian regimes to dictate what we do, what we say, and how we trade, then fine, that's a great argument. But the fact of life is that quite a lot of what we're talking about is basic incompetence in our public services. It's got nothing to do with how much we spend on defence. And we've spoken before, all of us, about, I'm afraid to say, we've got to hold people to account for delivery and also productivity. But that's for us to sort out. But externally right now, there is a very real threat. And what have we said? It's Trotsky's old comment, you know, war may not be interested, you may not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. And that is the state of play right now. And because people haven't experienced that since the Second World War, it's beyond anybody's conception. But people like Putin, Xi Jinping, the Ayatollahs in Iran, who all have regimes that are on the slide, are thinking about externalizing those internal problems right now.
Well, thank you so much, former NATO Commander Chris Parry.